now we're going to move on with a look through the international papers. Diptyque Laurent back in the studio with us for that. Hello there.
Hi, Kat.
Now, I think we're safe in saying that it's not very often that sort of domestic French politics makes the front pages of so many different international newspapers, but the news from last night in the primary first round for the centre-right parties, it's made quite a splash in many countries.
That's right, mainly because of the surprise winner, and I guess the surprise loser too. The surprise winner being François Fillon. He's really the dark horse of the French conservative primaries. Fillon, the man nobody expected. That's what the Belgian newspaper Le Soir says on its front page, and it couldn't be truer. The 62-year-old was Nicolas Sarkozy's prime minister for 5 years. As the Daily Mail says, he's a Margaret Thatcher fan, a liberalist, projected himself as a moderate reformer, and he's married to a Welsh woman. Now, the reason that these French primaries are being watched so intensely is because President François Hollande's ratings are so low right now that the far-right National Front Party is surging ahead, and the Conservative candidate, be it François Fillon or Alain Juppé when it's decided next week, is being seen by some as the potential new president of France next year.
However, it is a former president of France and his woes that have captured the imagination for many newspapers, perhaps even more than the win for François Fillon. We're talking about Nicolas Sarkozy.
Well, in some ways, Sarkozy's defeat has almost overshadowed Fillon's win, although I guess it's a win-win for Fillon anyway, because Nicolas Sarkozy has given his support to him. It seems natural in the international papers that Sarkozy's defeat would be making headlines. Namely, he's a household name. He's a former French president. The Guardian says that Sarkozy ran a, quote, divisive and extreme campaign that, I quote, stole the mantle of the far right and will leave its mark on the presidential campaign, while the Independent reports that Sarkozy is defeated as French centre-right prepares for battle with far-right leader Marine Le Pen. And you see a similar headline from the Spanish daily El País, the right eliminates Sarkozy as their candidate to the Élysée. It's interesting to note that in a lot of the international press, they almost consider it a foregone conclusion that the leadership battle next year will be inevitably between Marine Le Pen and someone from the centre-right, and that's really interesting.
Exactly. Well, looking back to François Fillon himself, he's seen in the New York Times, at least, as something of a quiet achiever.
Taciturn and tradition-minded, that's how the Times described Fillon, a man who has positioned himself between the integrationist stand of Alain Juppé, his rival, and the tougher positions of Nicolas Sarkozy. Among Fillon's promises, he wants to roll back the role of the state and cut civil servant jobs. He also wants to do away with the famous 35-hour work week and has called for a tougher crackdown on sympathizers of the Islamic State group.
All right, so from some political surprises here in France, move on to a not very surprising bit of news, I think we can all say, from Germany about another election that's coming up next year. Angela Merkel announcing on Sunday that she will stand for re-election.
Chancellor Angela Merkel will be standing a fourth term, as the Wall Street Journal reminds us on their front page. Her announcement ended speculation, but it comes as little surprise. For the center-left German daily Süddeutsche Zeitung, it's a decision not to run would have thrown Merkel's party into deep crisis.
And Angela Merkel is seen in some of the editorial pieces and articles as a bit of a force for stability in a time of turmoil around the world.
Perhaps a much-needed force for stability. The German Chancellor is seen by some as the most powerful leader in the world, and especially after Barack Obama steps down next January. Der Spiegel, which is a liberal daily, says there is no rival in Germany to Merkel. There is no alternative to her. The current wave of populism and authoritarianism gives her the chance to, quote, step up to the plate, step back into the role of Chancellor. Her biggest challenge, you'll remember, it was, of course, her handling of the refugee crisis, and she paid dearly for her strong pro-refugee stance. But that sort of seems to be changing in the popular opinion now.
Which her own popularity has taken a dip. I think it's down to its lowest level in about 5 years on one of the most recent polls. But in terms of running again for her own job, it does seem that she has public support.
Well, 59% of Germans think she is the person to do the top job. That's according to the British daily The Telegraph. If she does reach her fourth term, she would actually rival Helmut Kohl or equal Helmut Kohl as the longest-serving post-war chancellor. And in fact, the manifesto of Merkel's key pledges were quote unquote leaked to the German press. And we see a hardening of her policies in the lead up to the election, perhaps to draw back more of the sort of far right or hard right voters who feel alienated by what they see as a soft stance on refugee policy. Some of these proposals include a ban of the full Islamic veil and also benefit cuts to migrants who refuse to integrate.
All right, we've had a lot of talk of elections, not just in the press review, but throughout this morning here on Live from Paris. We've got somebody over in the United States, though, who doesn't want to hear about elections at all, particularly one election.
Well, this is not a case of accepting or not accepting the result of the U.S. election. Joe Chandler, that's a man there, he's consciously going out of his way not to find out who won the election. He's stayed away from television, newspapers, and social media since November the 8th. And now when he leaves his house, he wears these headphones and that signboard asking people not to tell him who won the election. So he has no idea Trump is going to be president. It started out because he woke up after November the 8th and felt so refreshed and peaceful that he wanted that feeling to continue. And so he's decided to prolong what he calls a bubble of blissful ignorance.
Wow, that's quite a feat. I wonder when he is finally going to stumble across maybe a tweet or something. Thanks very much. Diptyque Laurent looking through the international press there.